Welcome back. Welcome back, Hlahla kakhulu FC manager. How was the international break for you?
Yeah, it was relaxing. It was actually quite good to watch football and not cringe, to see if your players are performing or not. Felt good.
Very well, very well. It's good to have you back as well as the game. I'm just going to go straight off the bat and ask about your captaincy. I see we've got a very big differential there. Haaland on with the captaincy. Please tell us about that decision. Where did it come from?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kat. Yeah, I know. I was expecting that to be one of the first questions that is asked. Well, you know what? Haaland, the last 2 game weeks, I haven't necessarily been happy with the service that he's been getting. I feel that teams in the Premier League, they sort of have understood how to keep him quiet. And furthermore, I understand, obviously, Rodri wasn't available to be that guy making in those passes behind defenders. He's back, but it is against Brighton. And when I look at the fixture, Sheffield United, if you look at how they're performing, they are not the greatest team in England. They've got the most conceded shots, the most goals that have been scored at the moment. It goes without saying they are right at the bottom of the table. And I feel Haaland, obviously, he's taken off in the Champions League. I mean, he scored 3 goals in 2 games. So Champions League, he's got that form. When you look at the Premier League, he's yet to hit the ground running. But I just do feel that Sheffield is an opportunity for him to get some FPL points in the Premier League. Also looking at Bruno Fernandes's form in the international fixture that he played, some really decent assists, and he's looking a tad bit more confident. So I'm really hoping that they will find him and Rashford as well. He also had a decent run over the international break. So I'm really hoping that the link-up play to Haaland will be producing him with opportunities. And I know without a doubt that he'll definitely be putting away any opportunity he'll get. Haaland also scored in his international game. He was heavily marked as well. He was one of those players that was targeted, but he's still able to physically, hold his own, find the space to get shots away. And I just feel that if I'm going to move up any of my mini leagues, this is the game week I'm hoping to target. And for once, I'm crossing fingers that United does the business in terms of scoring goals. Not necessarily worried about them winning, but if there's goals that are scored and Haaland is on the score sheets, I'll be smiling.
All right, thanks, Goba, for that. I just have a simple question. Please give us your thoughts on your transfer plans, who's coming in, who's going out, and then also I see that you've changed your formation slightly and you put certain star players on the bench. If you could please take us through your thoughts on that.
No, thanks, chaps. I think this team is still going to change. It's definitely not the team that I will field for Saturday. Obviously, just purely for today's interview and session, I thought it would be quite nice to just have a chat and see how you guys think of how I've lined up. But answering your question, I feel that Saka's dropped in price, so he's definitely someone that I'm looking to shift out. I'll probably get Romero to be on my bench. I'm looking at between Aston Villa and a Newcastle player. So if we go Newcastle, I'm looking at your Gordon. He seems to be a decent option. If not Gordon, I'm looking at Diaby. For me, I've been watching Diaby over a few game weeks, and I'm really liking his form. I'm liking his fixtures as well. They are quite favorable. I mean, when you look at the likes of, West Ham, is not necessarily going to be an easy game, but he'll definitely be in the mix of things. And then after that, he's got Luton and Nottingham Forest. And then if I compare him to Newcastle fixtures, Gordon, he's got Crystal Palace, Wolves, and then obviously the third fixture isn't that great, Arsenal. So I'm trying not to make the same mistake I made the previous international break. Obviously, I'll be looking to hear the pre-match conferences that the coaches will have, just to get a feel that who's fit, who's playing. But other than that, yeah, Saka is the only person that I'm looking to ship out for Gameweek 9. And then obviously I've mentioned that the two players, they are tad cheaper than him. So I will be able to, down the line, bring him back in should the need arise. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Yeah, certainly some risky business with star players on the bench, but you learned from that. I think for me, the question is more about the flags as well. Potentially there could be other flags, as we've heard, maybe Romero going off halftime in the Argentina game. Is a hit an option for you? And have you used your transfer yet, or are you still going to use your transfers?
All right, no, thanks, Kat. I think I did mention it in the previous question. I'm yet to use my transfer hits at the moment. I took a hit the previous game week, so I'm not favoring a hit in game week 9. But I'm definitely considering it game week 10. The fixtures there are touch and go, and at least I'll have a clearer understanding. With international break, it's always very difficult to gauge the team's performance, especially when you have players that have gone away, and you have certain players that obviously didn't go on international break. Yes, they are professionals, but it generally takes some time for the team to click and get back into the rhythm that they had prior to the international break. So for this one, I'll just make that one transfer of Saka. Romero will be on my bench if I bring in between Diaby and Gordon. And then, as you said, it's risky business. That's what FPL is about. You've got to take the risks nice and early. The earlier you take your risks, the sooner you learn your lessons, and you also still have time, to bounce back. We've also got that wild card that we still need to ponder on and play it at the right time. So for me, game week 9, it's the right time to have some fun, take the risks. And I mean, there's nothing really at stake besides bandwagon, having a few chirps here and there, killer squad, acting like he's a Superman. It's all well and good to give guys the opportunity while they can, but it's not a 100-meter sprint, it's a marathon. And with marathons, you pace yourself. You can sprint 10Ks, jog another 5, walk another 5, and then it's really a matter of how you see it. So that's how I see it. Thanks.
Thank you for that interesting take, Goba. Really, really, very interesting take. Right. My question to you, right? There's a bit of a debate going on currently in the community with regards to is it better to have both Salah and Haaland, or just either or? What is your take on that debate?
No, thanks, chaps. Yeah, that is the debate. But for me, well, as you can see, I've got Haaland. And I don't see the need to have them both in the squad, purely because they just cost so much. Like investing so much money on two players. I mean, the one is he's 14 million, which is Haaland. He's dropped. He was 14.1, 14.2, if I'm not mistaken. And then Salah's 13 million. I mean, yeah, they have the knack of previously Salah. We all know he's been scoring a lot of FPL points in the past. Same with Haaland. But now you look at Haaland at the moment, he's blanked two game weeks in a row. So a lot of FPL managers are asking themselves, is he really worth that 14 million? And even myself, I'm asking myself, is he really worth that 14 million to keep him for that long? If I bring Salah, I wouldn't keep Haaland personally. For me, financially, I feel that there's so many other great players. There's so many other differentials. Obviously, you might get that one game week where they'll both perform, but I also just feel that teams now are really understanding and trying to limit the supply to Haaland. And you can see he's even frustrated himself. Yes, he's a great player, but until KDB comes back, that threat of Haaland for me, it's slowly diminishing. But when you look at Liverpool, they've really got some great fixtures. So for me, I think Salah is a better bet to go for if you've got the money. But having them both, I mean, if you look at the banter boys that we've had the both of them since the beginning of the season, you know. And if you look at how that team is performing, we're all outperforming that team, and they've got both those assets. Okay, obviously it's not purely reliant on those two assets because obviously there are other players that need to perform, but that just shows you that you can have both those assets and still not necessarily perform well in FPL. You know, if you look at all the other managers that are really doing quite well in FPL, very few of them have the both. You know, instead guys tend to focus on the differentials. So for me, you need to stick with one. You know, choose one, stick with them. But having them both, yeah, it's nice to see on paper. You know, great, you've got Salah, you've got Haaland, but you know, when you look at the team value, you look at the money that's invested in these two players, as opposed to spreading the possibilities. For an FPL manager, I think that's always better. It stands you in good stead, spreading the load, and you know, having funds in the bank. Because if you have both of them, hey, you're scrambling, eh? Yeah. So that's my take. Thanks.
Very, very interesting answer there. Right now, my question is leading to what is your take? You know, because you've very clearly highlighted how Salah has the more favorable run of fixtures right now and is in maybe not in the exact words, but better form than Haaland, considering the players around him. So the community, there are players, managers who have gone with Salah over Haaland and actually have teams where they don't have Salah, they don't have Haaland, they have Salah. What is your take on this? What do you think? Are you Haaland over Salah or Salah over Haaland? And are you planning to do that change, or is this something you would contemplate? What is your take on that?
Yeah. No. Thanks, Kat. Looking at fixtures, okay, Haaland is there because I started the season with Haaland. Haaland was the best player in the Premier League last season. He scored the most points. So we all have faith, and lots of managers have faith in Haaland. But it's a new season, you know. What I like with the Premier League is it's always adapting, it's always changing. And now we're actually seeing Haaland struggle. He's struggling off the ball, he's struggling with the ball. It even took him a while to click last season, but because he had world-class players in that midfield that were able to put him into space, and with him and his pace and his build, where he was able to get, whether he's getting his heel, he's getting his toe, he's throwing his head to it, he was able to get to the ball. But now we're seeing a different Haaland, where if you peg him back and you tight on him, he doesn't really play fair towards that. You know, you look at how he played against Arsenal with Saliba. Saliba was right there. He barely could move. He could barely do anything. So if you're going to be physical to Haaland, it's a problem. Now, when you look at Salah, Salah's a different player altogether, you know, where even Liverpool, they don't necessarily rely on him overly. You know, he's everywhere. And looking at the fixtures, for me, if you can afford to get Salah, right? And if you can afford to sell Haaland, but you can only sell Haaland if you're going to get Salah. You can't sell Haaland for any other player besides trying to get Salah in, you know? So for me, at the moment, I'm only keeping Haaland in because I'm yet to have the funds for Salah, you know? But if I had to wildcard, I'd definitely bring in Salah. And unfortunately, Haaland will just have to, make shift. Because I still believe as well, there's a plethora of players in the Premier League. And if you can spread your load and really manage your budget, I feel that you don't necessarily need the both of them to have a successful team. But definitely Salah is the guy to try and get in your team for the next 3 game weeks. Thanks.
Thanks, Goba, for that. Tell me, with regards to the wild card, are you still planning to use it towards near end of December, or are you one of those managers planning to use it now or in game week 10?
No, thanks, chaps. Yeah, hey, this wild card story. I've seen a lot of managers play wild cards. I was even surprised. I think it was game week 3. We had some managers play their wild card, and you're like, yo, I don't know what you're backing or what faith you have. But I think I've said this before, is that I've learned from the previous FPL seasons where I played the wild card through emotions, and it didn't necessarily work out for me. So what I'm trying this season is to really maximize the fact that we get 2 wild cards per season, which this wild card we can use it up until game week 20. If you don't use it until game week 20, then obviously you'll forfeit it. So I really want to maximize it this season, where we're looking at that game week 18, we look at that blank, who's blanking, who's playing where. There could be a double game week in game week 19. So I think for me, like other managers who haven't played it, it's definitely something to look out for, between game week 18 and game week 20, because there's a lot of uncertainties there. And also, it'll also assist to gauge where you're sitting in your mini leagues, because I feel that if you're not sitting well after game week 20, it's very, very difficult to catch up. And when the scoreboard pressure hits, you tend to make rash decisions. But funny enough, when I look at content and other specialists in FPL, a lot are talking about game week 10, looking at the fixtures for the various teams. So I mean, other managers might feel as if their squad is in disarray with a whole lot of flags. Then obviously you play your wild card. But for me, if I don't have 4 or 5 flags in my starting lineup, there's no rush. Just got to keep the faith, and keep the faith. Thanks.
Thank you, Goba.